Before I begin, I'd like to say that we can all agree that there is no word in the English language fit to describe the abomination that is a school shooting. We've been talking about this for the past 2 months, though I'm not sure we ought to. And I would like to say that I don't claim to be professional about any of the issues or solutions I'm about to present. I would merely like this to be the start of a conversation. When looking at problems pertaining to preventable death, we need to consider two things. First, how much innocent life is lost, for obvious reasons. And two, how practical the solutions to these issues are. Essentially, we're looking to save the most amount of life for the least amount of effort. If you are pro-life, abortion claims the most amount of innocent lives in America per year. In 2014, with 49 of the 52 regions responding, there was an annual abortion rate of 650,000. There are always going to be abortions, and it's definitely not possible to ban Planned Parenthood. So the solution to this problem is individual. Become good friends with people that are struggling, and if at some point they consider an abortion, help guide them through the decision and philosophy. I expect about half of you are pro-choice. So the next biggest issue is tobacco. From 2005 to 2009, smoking claimed an average of 480,000 lives per year. The solutions to this are very practical. For one, we could promote the much safer alternatives to cigarettes, electronic cigarettes. We could also require packaging of tobacco products like Australia, with gruesome images on the front in a disgusting shade of green. Obesity claimed roughly 300,000 lives in 2002. I say roughly because we aren't completely sure about the risk factor units for obesity. Combating this would require trickier solutions, such as widespread PSAs, a change in culture, and more regulation by the FDA. We could also genetically engineer healthier crops instead of focusing solely on taste. We could even offer gym incentives like tax deductions. Probably not. But as you can see, we have many avenues for fighting obesity in America. Up next, we have alcohol. 88,000 people die from consuming too much alcohol in America every year, according to the CDC. To combat this, we could legalize safer alternatives, such as marijuana. We could also promote healthier and smarter drinking in America. It's not all that great to binge drink, and I doubt your friend throwing up on the floor is really that amusing. I don't think that many of us are taught about drinking, as it doesn't seem relevant to schools and parents. But it becomes a big problem when you're passed out at a college party. It would be difficult in my mind to cut down the suicide rate in America, which snuffs out the lives of 45,000 people in America every year. The reason I say difficult is because I don't know that much about suicide. I do know, however, that it would be worthwhile to tear down the stigma that discourages seeking help in America. I've seen this stigma affect the disabled, people who are just trying to learn, and those that merely want to improve their lives. I believe we also need to love one another, giving some sense of purpose and humanity that seems absent despite all the hubbub of inclusion and acceptance. Opioids soothe the pain, but they also bring grief to 42,000 U.S. families every year. Again, I don't have much to say here, though I'm sure there are feasible solutions to reduce that number. I was actually very surprised to find out that distracted driving only killed 3,500 people in 2015. This issue seemingly has the simplest solutions, including making texting and driving a federal crime and requiring phones to disable at a particular velocity. Now, of course, there are nuances to all of these solutions. I'm just pointing out that we can save these lives. Before we look at school shootings, let's touch on mass shootings, just to be intellectually honest. For every 10 people that died to distracted driving, there was one person that died in mass shootings, or 346 in total, in 2017, which was deemed the deadliest year of school shootings by AOL. The solutions to this problem would be very difficult, as they would involve tighter gun regulations, better background checks, and or the government just doing a better job at detecting and taking down these individuals. One practical solution would be for major news outlets to stop reporting killers' names and photos, or to just stop giving these shooters so much coverage. I suspect their goal is often to get attention, and as I've just laid out, mass shooters are an astronomically small issue in the US, which brings us to school shooters. I looked at the Florida shooting and counted the lives lost there, as well as those within the past year. There were only 63 deaths. Just for reference, you are 5,000 times more likely to die from eating too many Big Macs than to be killed by a school shooter. And yet this is what we talk about. I'll briefly touch on solutions before coming back to this point. School shootings are easier to solve than mass shootings because they involve a particular area, and oftentimes more people are at fault. You could up security at schools. Your school could promote a healthy, encouraging environment, so like actually caring about bullying, and you could have safety drills / protocols for intruders. Going back though, these solutions aren't as simple to implement as better cigarette packaging, for instance, which would save more lives lost in a year than stopping school shootings for a century. As an illustration, I made this graph here for preventable deaths in the US, excluding abortions. If you look very closely, you can see distracted driving deaths in aqua. I think I can hover over it right here. Yeah, there we go. And if you have a keen eye and are watching on 180p, you could actually make out a faint red line for mass shootings. I actually can't hover over it right here. So if you pull this way up, we might be able to get a teensy-weensy glimpse at how small of a chunk school shootings have of the pie. All right, so let's do this and go all the way over here. Pull this out. Right, so now it's at the maximum amount that this graph can be pulled out. And so if we look very, very, very closely, we can see now the mass shootings, which makes up 0.0% of these preventable deaths, and we can't even see school shootings on here. Again, it's not that I don't care about kids getting shot up in schools, but I really think we should take a step back and ask ourselves what's really important. If our goal is to save lives, I don't think this is the right direction. Before I close, I would like to address a few counter-arguments to my philosophy. The first argument is that maybe you're just the one. We do need that one guy who's working to save the pandas. Just the same, if your calling is to fix school shootings, do it! Although, I don't advise you make a national issue out of it. Because, again, it's just a drop in the bucket. Another good argument is that there are larger issues at stake. Maybe the Second Amendment is a plague and will cause the downfall of America. Now, I might not agree with that, but if you believe that the underpinnings of school shootings will save more lives than looking at obesity and tobacco, have at it! Finally, and this is more of a point, you can argue that there are more fundamental issues than the loss of innocent life. Perhaps you value happiness or order or virtue. In the case of virtue, maybe America needs better role models. Maybe that will lead to even more saved lives, innovation, and love than gun reform ever could. If any of my research is wrong, if any of my arguments are invalid, or if my solutions are incorrect, which is likely, please let me know. Comments are highly appreciated, but keep them civil because we're all here to grow. If you found this video helpful, please leave a like. Otherwise, please leave a dislike. If you want others to hear this philosophy, please share this video. And until next time, keep thinking about what matters.